Mukherjee, who has been after me from July of last year, when he heard me in Delhi and said, please, you have to come to Presidency. So I was wondering, what is this Presidency? And today I know it's one of the oldest of the universities, and first time I'm setting foot into this place, though I've been to Calcutta many, many times, but it's always been to the medical school or to the tropical medicine departments. So I'm very glad I'm here today. Like your dean was saying, it's not going to be a talk for the biology students or for the humanities, it's for all of us. It's a topic I think all of us need to discuss and talk, though it's about almost 25 years old in India. So the first evidence of HIV in India, I was teaching at the Madras Medical College, which I thought was the oldest medical college. It was in 1835 the British had established. And while I was teaching microbiology there, I asked one of the postgraduates, just like some of you sitting here, were thinking what is the research question I can do for my thesis. I asked one of my postgraduate students, let's look at AIDS in India. And she said, so this was in 1986, and she said, we won't find AIDS in India because it is among homosexuals. Because the first HIV infections in the world were detected among the gay community in San Francisco. So she said, we don't have such people here because we are all very religious, we have a culture, and I will fail my MD. Because I won't find it. I said, no. If you don't find it, we'll say we have no AIDS in India, so you still can do it. So we started collecting samples, not from homosexuals, because at that point of time, even I thought we didn't have gay people in India, 25 years ago or longer. So we started collecting samples from female sex workers. In Calcutta, it would have been very easy. Go to Sonagachi area and start collecting room by room. You could have collected thousands of them. But in Chennai, we don't have such places. So we went to this place called the remand home. And in the remand home, women are brought by the police from brothels and remanded there, and in the morning they bailed out. So we went to this place in the morning at 6 o'clock and collected samples from the sex workers. And at that point of time, I was talking to some of the students about ethics. We had absolutely violated all the ethics, which is a must in research. We didn't tell them why we were collecting the blood. We didn't get their informed consent. We didn't do pre-test and post-test counseling, which is a must for HIV testing. And there was totally no confidentiality. And in spite of all this, we collected 100 samples and we tested them at CMC Vellore because we didn't have kits in Madras Medical College. I'm telling you this story because I know many of you are doing research and you don't get everything on a platter. You have to go from pillar to post to get things done. So we went to Vellore with these samples, tested the first 100 samples, and 6 of them came up positive. This was in the month of May 1986. The government of India said, don't breathe about it, don't tell the media, because then India would be branded as with AIDS. So the samples were taken and sent to Johns Hopkins University in US, where Tom Quinn was working, and he found by Western blot, which is a confirmatory test, all the 6 samples were positive. It was announced in the parliament by Munisha Kidwai, then the Minister for Health, Union Minister for Health, And then it was announced in the Legislative Assembly in Tamil Nadu. And the Health Minister at that time was Dr. Hande, who said, why don't you come to the Assembly and see, they are going to praise you for doing such a great job of detecting HIV in India for the first time. So I was very proudly followed him into the Legislative Assembly, and when it was announced, what do you think they did? They clapped their hands. They said, what a shame. Why did you have to find it in Tamil Nadu first? Now the whole country will say, we are dirty people, we are filthy. Why did you have to do it? So that's what I got. So don't think you do research, find something, people are going to praise you. Definitely not. So anyway, that was the first evidence of HIV in India. And this is, I'm trying to tell you, I didn't have gloves. You can see, I'm doing it with bare hands. Can you do HIV testing with bare hands? Definitely not. But we didn't have gloves. So I didn't sit back and say, oh, I cannot test because I don't have gloves. The government of Tamil Nadu didn't give us gloves at that time. But still we did the test, and that's Dr. Nirmala whose thesis it was. And we didn't have any suction apparatus. So I used this. And what is this? This is a suction apparatus you put in the chest of a person when they have pleural effusion. That's fluid in the lungs. You suck it out. So I didn't sit back and say, I don't have a suction apparatus, so I can't do a test. I borrowed this from my husband's theatre, and we used this to do the test. So I'm telling you this story because you have to make do with what you have, and please don't find excuses that you don't have something and you cannot do a test or a research. So that was the first time in India. This came out in the paper from West Bengal, that first, and that was the evidence of the first HTLV3, we called it, among the prostitutes in Tamil Nadu. So expect the unexpected. So after we found this is my alma mater, Madras Medical College, and you'll see 1835. The ICMR, or the Indian Council of Medical Research, gave me my first funding for research was 3 lakhs of rupees, with which I started the first voluntary counseling testing center in Chennai. And this is the place where I sat and waited for young people to come in. And that opened my eyes. I said, you cannot work in isolation in a lab when you have to do something like HIV, because young people walked into my voluntary counseling testing center, school pupil leaders, 16, 17, 18, for HIV test, which opened my eyes. I said, why test for you? Because they were as old as my son, and I was very worried, what are these young fellows coming in for testing? And they said, we've had sex. So that was the first time I said, I shouldn't be sitting inside a lab and testing blood, but I should be out there in the community talking to young people so that we can prevent the transmission of HIV. Today, the VCT centers are known as ICTC in India, and you have more than about 5,000 centers all over the country. But the first one was started in my place at Madras Medical College. And then this was the first paper which came out from Madras Medical College, which said the virus was multiplying very fast, and you'll see how the lines, the scale of infection is rising. So that was another lesson we learned from doing the test. Now, when we start talking about an infection, we must first start with prevention. So we know the virus spreads by sex, we know the virus spreads through blood, and we know the virus spreads from mother to child. So these are the 3 ways it spreads. So what were the prevention strategies by the government and by the NGOs was ABC. It's as simple as ABC. So we used to tell the students, abstain from sex. Is that possible? No, I don't hear any no, any yes. Huh?
No, it's not.
So I know there are queries in the mind. Is it possible? For some, yes. Am I right? But for some, no. So for the ones who say no, then be faithful to one partner. And both have to be faithful to one another, which is not happening in India. The woman is faithful to the man, but the man has multiple partners. So they pick up the virus and give it to the woman who says, I had only one partner. But actually she had many partners through her husband. So, but mutually faithful. So some of them can be that, right? But for some, variety is the spice of life. And for them, I would say, please use a condom if you want to prevent. So this was the message we gave in schools and colleges. But the principal said, no, don't talk about condoms. I said, I will not talk on condoms, but if the students ask, I will have to reply. So we used to give slips of paper in which the first question will be, are condoms 100% safe? So that opened the eyes of the principal and the teachers, and our school education spread very fast. And then we have other methods which came later on, like the syringe exchange, which is very common in drug users. And in West Bengal, you have a place called Siliguri, yes, full of drug users. We tried to start a center there, but your government said no, so I had to go back. But this is why we do a needle exchange program. And then we have other methods we'll talk about later, and we are trying also to prepare a vaccine to prevent, and then you can combine all these and do it together. So with the story of young people coming in, we started sexuality education in schools and colleges, starting with a Sacred Heart College, which is a Catholic college. And there the principal was convinced that we definitely need to talk. So he arranged a talk with about 78 principals, and they said, if your education is so clean, you're welcome to our institution. So clean. I said, what do you mean clean? No, you didn't show anything dirty. I said, no, I'm not going to show anything dirty. But if your students do ask, we'll have to answer those questions. So we went to their schools and did a clean presentation, but the questions which came were very unclean. And that's what the principal and the staff claimed, not me. Because they asked me about blowjob, and I had no idea what was blowjob. Do you know what blowjob is? You don't know what blowjob is? Hey, the school kids in Chennai are better than. Blowjob is oral sex. Does it spread through oral sex? And I was shocked because I had no idea what that was. And then they said, does it spread through French kissing? I said, look, I have never kissed a Frenchman, so I don't know. So then one girl got up and she said, no, then the tongue goes and the saliva mixes. I said, oh, that's a little dangerous. And so the questions came, and it opened the eyes of the principals. And after that, we were allowed into any school or college. They would say, please come and talk. And then I said, I shouldn't be sitting here in a government medical school. I should be out there in the community. I gave up my prestigious position there as a professor of the head of department and walked out with almost nothing to establish YRG Care. And this is the place I got. No one would give a place to start HIV work. They said, no, the virus will creep all over. So then I got this place which were 2 rooms, and with a vision to prevent new infection and a mission to respond to the HIV prevention, care and research needs of this country. So we started health education first for girls alone, then we mixed girls and boys because that's the way sex education has to be done, and then there were small groups, and finally we started training the teachers because we couldn't continue doing school after school. There are hundreds and thousands of schools all over. So finally the UNICEF and the Tamil Nadu State AIDS Control Society took over. They produced the book, and I think it is the only state where sexuality education is being done in the 9th and the 11th grade students all over the state. So once we started testing people for HIV or talking to them about HIV in a school or college, and any questions, someone would get up and say, you know, my friend needs to go for a test. It's not me, my friend. So I say, okay, you can come to our center, to my office, and we started voluntary counseling and testing, individually first, and then couple counseling, nutrition counseling. You need a lot of counseling in HIV, and then ultimately family counseling, because there's so much stigma in the family. They throw the women out when somebody is found HIV positive. So that was the beginning of our first voluntary counseling testing, and this was my first laboratory. For all those who are complaining not enough things in this Presidency University, this was my lab. A kitchen which was 6 feet by 8 feet, and all I had was ELISA readers, kits and Western blot kits. And with that we started our lab, and today I wish all of you can come and see our laboratory. It's one of the best labs for HIV work in India. So over a period of time, you'll see the number of people walking in for testing and counseling went up. That was the total, and these are women, and you'll see how many women started walking in for counseling and testing, and a total of about 32,000 people have walked in to our center in the last, from 1994 when we started this. And who are these people? 22% of them are housewives with a single partner. I told you at the beginning of my talk, they had only a single partner, but if the man had multiple partners, they do definitely pick up. And then you have truckers, students, healthcare workers, professionals, skilled, unskilled, almost every category. The virus has cut across all the strata of society in India, and marriage has become a risk. So we started what is known as YRG Care matrimonial service for those who are HIV positive, because in India marriage is a must. You agree or not? No? I like the way you people are shaking your head. But do your parents agree? I am a parent of a son who is 34, not married, and I am very worried. Why he is not married? He's very handsome, tall, like a film guy. He's finished his medicine, he's finished his PhD at Johns Hopkins, working as an associate professor there, but not married. So it does definitely get us worried. So marriage is a must, and we need to help people who want to get married. So among those who came for testing, how many were positive? You'll see a lot of them were positive. Women, 15% in the beginning when I started working. Today, 40% are women, and 18,000 people are registered with us, and more than half of them are still under our care. This is my first clinic. It was half of a room, which I showed you in the beginning, 2 rooms. So this was a half. We divided it with a little mat, and we used to examine patients there. But inpatient, we had absolutely no place, no hospital in Chennai. We have thousands of hospitals would admit a person with HIV. So we started admitting them on the roadside in hut, which was built by volunteers from Australia, and that's where the patients were kept. You'll see Dr. Topuga there. He came from Dimapur to tell me I'm going to commit suicide because I'm HIV positive. So I said, please don't commit suicide. I need people to help me. He's still with me. 1995 he joined me. He's today married. He's got 3 kids, all negative, wife negative, and they have a lovely family. And he's still working with me. So people with HIV just don't drop dead if we help them to live a good life. So that was my first inpatient inside a hut on the street. Then a lady donated this to me. She went away to Canada. So it had 6 rooms in it. And then we found that was not enough for us. And then we found this place, a dilapidated building in a voluntary health services which was used for leprosy patients. So we took that over, and this is how it changed. With the help of the Rotary and the Round Table, we had 20 beds put in, and then we had all these doctors working with me. And then finally, this is the patient flow over the period of time. So today we have about 18,000 patients we are following. Now what is the natural history of HIV in India for those in the biology? There are different subtypes, A, B, C, D, E, G. So we in India have subtype C is maximum, except in the northeast, where there is a lot of mixing because people from Myanmar and from Thailand, they come across the Golden Triangle and there is a mixing of different strains or subtypes, and you get a mixture, recombinant ones and this was published. In the beginning, when I started looking at people with HIV, what did I find? Guys coming up like this, like this, like this, and this is the tertiary stage of syphilis, a gamma in the hard palate, which I had seen as an intern in 1964 for the last time. And now again I see with HIV, because HIV decreases your immunity so fast that the virus is spread so. And these were the dark ages when we saw these cases. And now this is the gullet and the brain. You'll see all. So HIV affected every part of the body. And these are the eyes. They become blind. And then this is Penicillium marfani, which is a bug which causes these lesions. And the one at the bottom you see in the fair skin is a person from Manipur. Kaposi sarcoma, the only case which was found in India, we had published it. So this was the dark ages of HIV, early infections. But then we formed what is called the Indian Network of Positive People, and this guy is a marine engineer, Ashok, and he was the first president of this Indian Network of Positive People, came to us with fits, and we needed a ventilator. No one in Chennai would give us because he was HIV positive. Finally, he died in front of our eyes after 2 hours of struggling to breathe. And then the next year, we made our own ICU with ventilators so that we can save such people. In the beginning, we had absolutely no drugs for HIV, but then we started getting drugs in the West, and the Indian pharmaceutical companies started making those drugs. So what did they call us? The Western pharmaceutical agencies started calling us thieves, robbers, breaking the patent, manufacturing drugs. Is that right? Someone from Washington Post called me one night and said, you people are thieves, you're robbers, you're taking away our drugs and giving it to Indian people. I said, our lives are as important as American life, so we will definitely prepare it and use it. And these drugs were tested by us, and we found them safe, tolerable, effective, and there was a rapid decrease in viral load. So when we started treating patients with HIV, the drugs used to cost us 35,000 rupees